Bob Iger stared at the parade and realized Disney had already lost. 5 years later, he would spend over $7 billion of Disney's money to fix that single mistake. Because Disney didn't become the most powerful entertainment company in the world by making better movies. It became the most powerful because it realized something almost every other company ignored. Why spend 20 years trying to create the next Star Wars when you can simply buy Star Wars? How Disney bought its way to an empire. To understand this, we have to go back to 2004. Disney was in a quiet, terrifying panic. They weren't losing to DreamWorks or Sony. They were losing to the very studio they helped create, Pixar. Disney distributed Pixar's movies, but behind the scenes, the relationship was collapsing. Steve Jobs believed Disney was taking too much credit and too much profit. By 2004, Jobs publicly announced that Pixar was walking away. Imagine being Disney, the creator of Mickey Mouse, Snow White, and The Lion King. Suddenly, your biggest attraction isn't yours anymore. That realization terrified Bob Iger when he took over as CEO in 2005. During a parade at Hong Kong Disneyland, he noticed every single character the kids were screaming for. Woody, Buzz, Nemo belonged to Pixar. Disney's own icons were barely getting a reaction. If Disney couldn't own those characters, they couldn't own the future. Let's decode this. What Wall Street saw was Disney buying an animation studio for $7.4 billion. What Iger actually bought was a creativity engine. Wall Street hated the Pixar deal. Analysts called it reckless. Some investors believed Bob Iger had just overpaid by billions. But remember that parade? That single parade cost Disney $7.4 billion. And history would prove the doubters were wrong. Disney had solved its innovation problem, but an even bigger opportunity was about to appear. It came from a bankrupt comic company. In 2009, Disney bought Marvel Entertainment for $4.4 billion. And immediately, Hollywood laughed. Nobody cared about Iron Man. Batman was bigger. Spider-Man was bigger. Iron Man wasn't even Marvel's most famous hero, but that is exactly what made him dangerous. Here is what almost nobody talks about. 10 years earlier, Marvel had filed for bankruptcy. To survive, they had sold off their crown jewels. Spider-Man went to Sony, the X-Men went to Fox, but Marvel wasn't trying to make another standalone superhero movie. With Iron Man, they were secretly building something Hollywood had never seen before, a shared cinematic universe. Disney noticed it before everyone else did. But here's what Disney was actually buying. Disney wasn't buying comic books. They were buying proof. Proof that you could turn overlooked characters into a money printing machine. Disney now owned superheroes. But superheroes weren't enough. They still wanted an entire galaxy. In 2012, Disney made a move that felt almost mythic. They bought Lucasfilm for $4.05 billion. Imagine spending 40 years building your life's work, creating a mythology that defined generations, reshaped pop culture, and generated billions. Then handing it to someone else. George Lucas once said that Star Wars was like raising a child, and eventually you have to let it go. He wasn't selling a company. He was choosing who would become the next guardian of his legacy. Disney promised him the galaxy would continue long after he stepped away. With one signature, the deal was done. And suddenly, Darth Vader belonged to Mickey Mouse. Let's zoom out. For less than $4 billion, Disney bought a universe that had already inspired generations and would continue generating billions long after George Lucas retired. Disney had conquered movies. Now they wanted the future of television. Wall Street wasn't worried about Pixar. It wasn't worried about Marvel. But Fox was different. $71 billion. It became one of the biggest acquisitions in entertainment history. And even Disney's most loyal shareholders started asking, has Bob Iger finally gone too far? By 2018, Netflix wasn't just another streaming service. It had become the fastest-growing threat Disney had faced in decades. For the first time, families no longer needed Disney's cable channels. They could simply open Netflix. Disney realized if they didn't control streaming, someone else would control the attention of the next generation. Now the pattern becomes obvious. This wasn't a Hollywood deal. It was a survival tactic. Looking back, it wasn't Avatar or The Simpsons Disney really wanted. It was time. Time to compete before Netflix became impossible to stop. By acquiring Fox, Disney instantly got the massive library of thousands of movies and TV shows they needed to launch Disney and survive. Let's decode the pattern. If you look at these acquisitions individually, they look like separate corporate deals. Together and they form one flawless master strategy. Disney never bought two companies for the same reason. Pixar solved an innovation problem. Marvel solved a demographic problem, capturing young adults. Lucasfilm solved a loyalty problem, acquiring a multi-generational global fandom. Fox solved a distribution problem, giving them the ammunition for the streaming war. Disney didn't collect companies. It eliminated weaknesses. They built an unbreakable loop. They acquire the IP. They integrate it across their theme parks, toys, cruise lines, and video games. They multiply the revenue. And then they repeat. By doing so, they captured attention, the ultimate currency of our era. At the beginning of this video, we asked one question. What was Disney actually buying? It wasn't Pixar. It wasn't Marvel. It wasn't Star Wars. And it wasn't Fox. Disney was buying something much more valuable, the right to shape what future generations love. Because once you own that, everything else becomes easier to sell. Business principle number 1. Own products, you compete. Own IP, you dominate. This was Business Decoded. If you want to understand the hidden principles that shape the world's most powerful empires, subscribe. I'll see you in the next case study.